The evolution of American foreign policy from George Washington's farewell address to the Southeast Asia War encapsulates significant changes and continuities that reflect the broader themes of America's role in the world. Continuity. Washington's farewell address set the foundational tone for U.S. foreign policy, advocating for neutrality and warning against entangling alliances. This principle of avoiding permanent alliances and focusing on domestic stability remained a significant influence on American foreign policy for decades. Washington's advice initially kept the U.S. isolated from European conflicts, allowing it to focus on internal development and westward expansion. Over time, the strict adherence to neutrality faded as the U.S. engaged more with global affairs. The reason for that is the growth of American power and interests abroad, which made a more involved stance in global politics necessary. Continuity. Building on Washington's advice, the Monroe Doctrine asserted U.S. opposition to European colonialism in the Americas, reinforcing a policy of regional dominance and non-intervention in European affairs. The Monroe Doctrine laid the groundwork for future American intervention in Latin America, asserting Western Hemisphere influence. Change. This doctrine marked a more assertive foreign policy, positioning the U.S. as a protector of the Western Hemisphere. The growing sense of national identity and the desire to prevent European interference in American affairs drove this shift. Continuity. The war represented a continuation of the expansion policies hinted at in the Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny, as the U.S. sought to remove European powers from the hemisphere. The Spanish-American War signified the U.S.'s emergence as a global power, engaging in overseas expansion and influencing international politics. Change. It marked a significant shift towards imperialism, with the U.S. acquiring territories beyond its continental borders such as Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Economic interests, strategic considerations, and a sense of national destiny propelled this change. Continuity. Initially, the U.S. adhered to its isolationist tendencies, staying out of the war until 1917. Although the U.S. retreated to isolationism during the interwar period, its brief engagement in World War I demonstrated its potential influence in global affairs. The change is that U.S. involvement in World War I marked a departure from strict neutrality, as it played a decisive role in the conflict and post-war diplomacy. Some examples of that would be the Treaty of Versailles, 14 points, and the League of Nations.
Slide 6, World War II. A continuity is initially the U.S. adhered to its isolation policy. In addition, the attack on Pearl Harbor and the ensuing war efforts demonstrated a continued commitment to defend national security and responding to direct threats. The war solidified the U.S. as a superpower with a leading role in global politics and creation of a new world order. The change is World War II fully ended isolationism, establishing the U.S. as a global leader with significant involvement in international organizations like the United Nations and post-war reconstruction like the Marshall Plan. The scale of the war and the threat posed by the Axis powers necessitated the full-scale engagement used by America. This is slide 7, the Cold War. Continuity is the U.S. maintained its role as a global leader, now in opposition to the Soviet Union, embodying a new form of international engagement. The Cold War defined global politics for decades, with the U.S. involved in various conflicts and alliances like NATO to counter the Soviet influence. The U.S. kept promoting democracy at a global level. The change is the Cold War introduced a policy of containment involving extensive military, political, and economic strategies to prevent the spread of communism, like the Eisenhower Doctrine. The ideological battle between capitalism and communism required a sustained and multi-faced approach. This is slide 8, the Vietnam War. Continuity is the Vietnam War continued the policy of containment, reflecting the consistent aim to prevent the spread of communism. The war underscored the challenges of military intervention and influenced future U.S. foreign policy towards more cautious engagement. The change is that the war highlighted the limits of American power and the complexities of international intervention. The Vietnam War also damaged U.S. credibility and shifted the perception of America American power on a global stage.
Throughout this period, from Washington's farewell address to the Vietnam War, U.S. transitioned from isolationism to an active global leader.